Anecdotes of Pious Men by Ayatollah Murtudha Mutahhari. Story number 1. The Stranger. Tired and exhausted with the water skin on her back, she was gasping and going towards her house, where innocent children, their eyes fixed at the door, were eagerly waiting for the arrival of their mother. On her way, an unknown man approached her. He took the water skin from her and placed it on his back. The door opened, and the children saw their mother entering the house with a stranger. He placed the water skin on the ground and said, "Well, it seems you don't have anyone to fetch water for you. How come you are so forlorn?" She said, "My husband was a soldier. Ali sent him to the frontier where he was killed. Now I am alone with these little children." The stranger said no more. Bowing down his head, he went away. But the thought of the helpless widow and orphans remained in his mind. He could hardly sleep in the night. Early in the morning, he picked up a basket, put some meat, flour, and dates in it, and went straight to her house and knocked at the door. "Who are you?" she said. "I am the man who brought you your water yesterday. Now I have brought some food for the children." "May God bless you and judge between us and Ali," she replied. Then she opened the door. Entering the house, the man said, "I wish to do some good acts. Either let me knead the flour and bake the bread, or allow me to look after the little children." "Very well," she said, "but I can do the job of kneading and cooking better than you," she said. "You take care of the children till I finish cooking." She went to knead the flour immediately, whereas he grilled some meat which he had brought and fed the children, saying to each child while putting morsels in their mouth, "My son, forgive Ali if he has failed in his duty towards you." The flour got ready. She called, "Gentlemen, put the fire in the oven." So the man went and put the fire in the oven, and when the flames rose up, he brought his face near the fire and said, "Taste the heat of fire. It is the punishment of those who fail in their duty towards orphans and widows." By chance, a woman from the neighboring house came in. Recognizing the stranger, she cried, "Whoa, don't you recognize the man who was helping you? He is Amirul Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib." The widow came forward and shamefacedly cried, "Curse and shame to me! I beg your pardon." "No," the man replied, "I beg your pardon, for I failed in my duty towards you." Story number 2. Juwayber and Zelfa. How beautiful it were if you could marry and establish a family, ending this forlorn and isolated life. You could fulfill your natural urges, and also she could help you in your temporal and spiritual needs and goals. "O Messenger of God, I have neither wealth nor beauty, nor have I a noble descent or lineage. Who will marry me? And which woman likes to be the wife of a poor, short, black, and ugly man like me?" O Juwayber, God has changed the individual's worth through Islam. Many people were high-placed in the pre-Islamic society, and Islam brought them down. Many were despised, non-entities, and Islam bestowed them with honor and high rank and brought them up. Islam abolished un-Islamic discrimination and pride of lineage. Now all people, irrespective of their color and origin, are equal. Nobody has superiority over others, but through piety and obedience to God. Among the Muslims, only that person would be higher than you whose virtues and deeds are better than you. Now do as I tell you, said the Messenger of God. These words were exchanged one day between the Prophet and Juwayber when the Prophet came to see the people of Saffa. Juwayber, you see, was a native of Yamama, where he came to know about the Prophet and the advent of Islam. He was a poor, black and short man, but at the same time, He was an intelligent, truth-seeking, and a man of determination. He came to Medina to look at Islam from near, and in a short time, he embraced Islam. Since he had neither money, house, nor any friends, he temporarily was accommodated along with other poor Muslims in the mosque by the permission of the Prophet. When it was revealed unto the Prophet that the mosque was not a place of habitation, it became necessary to shift them elsewhere. The Prophet selected a site outside the mosque and erected a shed for them. The place was named as Saffa, and the residents were known as Ashab Saffa, all of them poor people from places far away from Medina. The Prophet came to visit them one day, and noticing Juwaybir among them, he decided to bring him out of his forlorn life. It was beyond the fancy of Juwaybir to own a house and have a wife in his condition. And that was why he replied to the Prophet as to how it was possible for anyone to accept him in matrimony when the Prophet advised him to marry. But the Prophet, removing his doubts, explained to him the changes brought about in the social outlook of the people by Islam. After bringing Juwaybir out of his inferiority complex, he directed him to the house of Ziyad ibn Lubayd to request him for his daughter's hand in marriage. Ziyad was one of the wealthiest persons of Medina and commanded high respect among his tribes. When Juwaybir entered his house, he was surrounded by his relatives and some of the tribesmen. Juwaybir took a seat, paused for a moment, and then raising his head, he said, "I have brought a message from the Prophet. Do you like to hear it confidentially or openly?" Ziyad said, "A message from the Prophet is an honor to me. Better you tell it openly." So Juwaybir said, "The Prophet has sent me to request you for your daughter for myself." Ziyad replied, "Did he himself make this suggestion to you?" Juwaybir replied, "I don't speak on my own accord. Everybody knows me. I am not a liar." "Strange," said Ziyad, "but we don't give our daughters to persons of unequal status, nor outside our tribe. You go back, and I shall go to the Prophet and have a talk with him myself." Juwaybir left the house murmuring, "By God, whatever the Quran teaches and whatever is the purpose of the prophethood of Muhammad is totally against what Ziyad says." Those nearby heard the murmurings of Juwaybir. Zalfa, the lovely daughter of Ziyad and the beauty queen of Medina, heard these words of Juwaybir. She came to her father and asked, "Father, what was that man who just went out saying, and what did he mean?" Her father replied, "He had come to ask for your hand in marriage and was claiming that the Prophet had sent him for this purpose." "Isn't it possible that he had really sent him, and thus your rejection may amount to disobedience of the Prophet's order?" she said. "What do you feel about it?" replied her father. She replied, "I feel you should bring him back before he reaches to the Prophet, and then go yourself to find out the truth." So the man went and brought Juwaybir back to his house with due respect, and then himself hurried up to the Prophet. When he saw him, he said, "O Messenger of God, Juwaybir came to my house and brought such and such a message from you. I would like to inform you that our custom is to give our daughters to persons of equal status and belonging to our tribe, who are your helpers and companions, of course." "O Ziyad," replied the Messenger of God, "Juwaybir is a faithful man. That dignity and honor which you are talking about has now been abrogated. Every believer man is equal for marriage purpose to every believer woman." Ziyad returned to his house and explained the matter to his daughter. She said, "Please do not reject the proposal put by the Prophet. This matter concerns me. I accept Juwaybir, whatever his conditions may be. If the Prophet is pleased with it, I am also pleased." The wedding was duly solemnized and carried forward. Ziyad paid the dowry from his own wealth and offered good articles and objects and gifts to the couple. They asked the bridegroom, "Have you got a house where to take the bride?" He replied, "No, I had never thought that I would get a wife and settle in domestic life. It was the Prophet who came suddenly and had a talk with me and sent me to Ziyad's house." Ziyad arranged for him a house equipped with complete household items and transferred the bride superbly adorned with ornaments and perfumes. The night came. Juwaybir did not know where the house was that was supposed to be meant for him. He was guided to the house and led to the bridal chamber. When he saw the house and its equipments and looked at the dazzling bride, his past came to his mind and he said to himself, "How poor I was when I entered this city. I had nothing, neither money nor beauty, neither any lineage nor family. Now God has made these affluences available to me through Islam. Indeed, it is Islam that has brought such changes in the social outlook of the people beyond any imagination. How grateful I am to God for bestowing upon me all these blessings." In spiritual ecstasy, he went to a corner of the room, spent the night in recitation of the Quran and prayer. It was dawn when he came to himself and then decided to fast in thanks to God. When women came to see Zalfa in the morning, they found her untouched. They kept the matter secret from Ziyad. 2 nights and days passed in the same manner. The man, Juwaybir, was fasting during days and praying during nights. The women of the family of the bride were worried. They thought perhaps Juwaybir was impotent and had no need for a woman. At last they put the matter before Ziyad. He informed the Prophet, and the Prophet called Juwaybir and asked, "Don't you have any desire for women?" "Incidentally, I have a very intense desire of that kind," replied Juwaybir. So the Prophet said, "Why didn't you go near your bride?" The man replied, "O Prophet of God, when I entered the house I found myself amidst that affluence. A state of gratitude and devotion took over me. I thought it necessary to offer thanks and prayers to Allah before doing anything. Tonight I shall go near my wife." When the call for self-defense of Islam came, he participated in it with enthusiasm typical of a brave Muslim and achieved martyrdom under the banner of Islam and Prophet Muhammad. After Juwaybir's martyrdom, Zalfa was the most sought-after woman for a wife, and people were eager to pay the greatest dowry for her. Story number 3. The New Convert. 2 neighbors, a Muslim and a Christian, were on friendly terms. Having a concern for one another, they used to inquire after each other's health and exchanged views from time to time. The Muslim, being a devout and religious man, spoke high of his religion, and the result was that the Christian became a Muslim. The night passed and it was nearing dawn. The Christian, a new convert, heard someone ramming his door. Surprised and restless, he shouted, "Who is it?" From the back, a loud voice said, "I am so-and-so," introducing himself. He was that Muslim neighbor who had the honor of converting him to Islam. "What do you want at this late hour?" replied the Christian man who had converted. "Be quick, put on your clothes and perform ablution so that we should go to the mosque together," replied the Muslim friend. The new Muslim just performed his ablution for the first time in his life and then set out to mosque behind his Muslim friend. They had arrived before time. It was actually the time for the recommended prayer after midnight. They prayed till dawn, and the time came for the morning prayer. They prayed the morning prayer and were engaged in benedictions and invocations till it became perfectly clear. When the new Muslim made a move towards the door, his friend interrupted, "Where are you going?" "I am going home. Since I finished my morning prayer, there is nothing else to do now." "Wait a while and recite the benedictions till the sun rises." "Very well," said the new Muslim. So he sat and recited the same till the sun rose. When he rose up to go, his Muslim friend placed the Quran in his hand, saying, "Read it till the sun rises a little higher. And I advise you to fast today. Don't you know how much virtues and rewards there are in fasting?" The new Muslim did as he was told, and sat reciting the Quran till it was nearing noon. The Muslim neighbor said, "Now it is almost noon. Better we perform the noon prayer in the mosque." So the dhuhr, or the noon prayer, was prayed. Then he said again, "After just a short time, the asr prayer will be prayed. We should perform that also at the proper time." That prayer was also performed. Then he said, "It is almost time for the evening prayer now," and detained the new convert till it was time for the evening prayer. When he rose up to break his fast, the neighbor said, "There is one more prayer remaining. It is named Isha, or the sleeping time prayer." So they waited nearly 1 hour for the proper time of this prayer. After that, the new Muslim got up and went away. Next day, at the same hour of the night, he again heard knocking at the door. "Who's there?" "I am so-and-so, your neighbor." "Be quick, put on your clothes and perform ablution so we can go to the mosque together." The convert replied, "As soon as I returned from the mosque last night, I completely resigned from your religion. Please go away and find some other idle man who has nothing to do in this world, so that he may be able to spend his whole time in the mosque. I am a poor man, having a wife and children to feed. I should better go after my work and earn my livelihood." Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, relating the story to his friends and companions, said, "In this manner, a devout man, after converting a new Muslim, had himself kicked him out of Islam. You must bear this fact in mind and should not trouble the people unnecessarily. You should judge their strength and capacity and act accordingly, so that they develop affinity for the religion and do not run away from it. Don't you know that the policy of the Umayyads is based on violence, oppression, and intimidation, whereas our ways and methods are based on leniency, brotherhood, and persuasion." Story number 4. Nasiba. The deep scar on the shoulder of Nasiba, daughter of Ka'b, spoke of a major wound in the past. Whenever the women, especially of the younger generation, who had not seen the time of the Prophet or were too small at that time, noticed the cavity in her shoulder, and so they inquired with extreme curiosity about the frightening incident which had resulted in the injury of her shoulder. They loved to hear her adventures in the Battle of Uhud from her own mouth. She had never imagined that she would fight shoulder to shoulder with her husband and 2 sons, defending the Prophet in the Battle of Uhud. She had only taken the water skin on her back so that she could provide water to the injured, and also had taken some homemade bandages to dress their wounds. She had not thought of herself as worthy of any other work on that day. Although the Muslims were small in number and had only a limited supply of equipments, they gave a grand defeat to the enemy, who took to their heels, vacating the battlefield immediately. But soon after this so-called victory, due to the negligence of some men guarding the Ainain hills, the enemy made a surprise attack from the rear, turning the victory of the Muslims into defeat. The Muslims surrounding the Prophet fled away, leaving him almost alone in the battlefield. When Nasiba saw this precarious situation, she put the water skin on the ground and took a sword in her hand. She fought with the sword and also made good use of bows and arrows, and took a shield left over by a fleeting soldier. Once she noticed a man shouting, "Where is Muhammad himself?" She approached him immediately and inflicted a few blows on him. But he was a double-armored individual, and her attacks had not much effect on him. He then inflicted such a heavy blow on the shoulder of the armorless woman that it required treatment for 1 year. Noticing a stream of blood gushing from her shoulder, the Prophet called to one of her sons to immediately dress her wound. He put a bandage over her shoulder, and she again got busy in the battle. Meanwhile, one of her sons got injured. She took out a bandage and dressed his wound. The Prophet, watching the scene, smiled at the heroism of this woman. After dressing her son's wound, she instructed him to get going for the battle. These words were still in her mouth when the Prophet pointed out a man to her and told her that he was the same man who had injured her son. She attacked the man like a lioness and inflicted her sword on his leg. He fell on the ground, and the Prophet said, "Well, you have taken your revenge. Thanks be to God who gave the victory on him and made your eyes cool. Many Muslims were martyred and wounded. She herself was severely wounded, and there was no hope of her life. After the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet ordered the wounded Muslims to pursue the enemy upon Hamra ul-Asad to be sure of their intention and condition. Nasiba also wanted to accompany them, but the deep injuries did not allow her to do so. On returning from Hamra ul-Asad, the Prophet, before reaching his house, sent someone to inquire about her health and was pleased to learn that she was alive. Story number 5. Complaint against the husband. Ali, during the days of his khilafat or his caliphate, used to personally listen to the grievances and complaints of the people. Once, the days were hot and people did not venture out of their houses after midday. Despite the temperature, Imam Ali sat every day outside his house under the shade of a wall so that if someone had any complaints, they could lodge the same to him directly. Sometimes, he would walk in lanes and streets observing the general condition of the people. One day, he returned to his residence, tired and sweating, and found a woman waiting. Seeing him, she came near and said, "I am in trouble. My husband oppresses me. He has turned me out from the house and has threatened to beat me. If I go to him, he will beat me. I request you to do justice between us." "O servant of God," Imam Ali replied, "it is too hot now. Wait till it cools down in the afternoon. Then I shall come with you and redress your grievances." "If I stay out too long, I am afraid it may increase his anger," she replied. For a moment he bowed his head and then raised it up, saying to himself, "No, by God, justice to the oppressed should not be delayed. The right of the oppressed should certainly be taken from the oppressor, and every fear should be taken out from her heart so that she may stand boldly before the oppressor and demand her right." So the Imam said to her, "Tell me, where is your house?" She said, "It is in such and such place." So the Imam said, "Let us go." He accompanied her to her house, stood at the door and called loudly, "O master of the house, peace be with you." A young man came out. He was her husband. He did not recognize Imam Ali. He found that an old man of about 60 years had accompanied her and assumed that she had brought him for support and mediation, but he kept silent. Imam Ali said, "This lady has a complaint against you. She says that you have oppressed her and have ousted her from the house. Besides, you have threatened to beat her, and I have come here to tell you to fear God and be kind to your wife." "In what way does it concern you," said the husband, "if I have not treated my wife well? Yes, I had threatened to beat her, but now, since she has brought you to plead for her, I shall throw her into fire and burn her alive." Imam Ali was disturbed by the impudence of the man. Drawing out his sword, he said, "I am only advising you to do good and admonishing you from bad deeds, but you are replying me in such a manner, clearly saying to burn this woman in fire. Do you think there is no authority in this world?" His loud voice drew the attention of the people nearby, and a huge crowd gathered. Whoever came bowed down with reverence before this old man and saluted him by saying, "Peace be with you, O Commander of the Faithful." When the rude young man realized as to whom he was talking with, he trembled and supplicated, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, forgive me. I confess my faults and promise that henceforth I shall obey my wife." Imam Ali turned to the woman and told her to go in the house and cautioned her not to behave in such a manner that her husband had to be angry again. Story number 6. The son of Hatim. Before the advent of Islam, there were in Arabia autonomous tribal chiefs. The people were used to the rule of their chiefs and thus obeyed them, and often paid them tributes and also taxes. The well-known generous Hatim of the tribe of Tay was one of the tribal chiefs of Arabia. His son Adi succeeded him after his death, and the tribe submitted to his rule. He was taxing them to the extent of 1/4 of their income every year. His lordship coincided with the advent of the Prophet. The Thai tribes were idol worshippers, but himself was a Christian, but kept his beliefs secret from his people. The people, after being acquainted with the liberal teachings of Islam, felt themselves relieved from the burden of their lords who had hitherto imposed their rule upon the people. Owing to this fact, Adi, like the other lords, used to look upon Islam as the greatest danger for himself, and was harboring enmity against the Prophet. But the die was cast. People were embracing Islam in increasingly large numbers, and the religion of God was advancing day by day. He knew that the day was near when the Muslims would come looking for him also, and that would be the end of his lordship. He therefore instructed his special steward, a slave, to always keep strong and keep light-footed camels ready near his camp, and to remain watchful. One day the slave came to him and said, "Make whatever arrangements you want to make, as the Muslims are very close." Adi mounted his family on the camels and took whatever valuables and luggage he could take, and escaped to Damascus, where the people were of his religion. But in confusion he forgot to take his sister, Safana, with him, and she was left behind. The Muslims defeated the tribe in the battle, and some were made captives. Muslims brought Safana to Medina along with other captives, and also related the story of how Adi escaped the Prophet. The prisoners were sheltered in a low-walled compound near the mosque. One day the Prophet, while going to the mosque, passed beside the enclosure. Safana, who was intelligent and talkative as she was, moved from her place and said, "My father is dead. My guardian is hiding. Be generous to me, as God will be generous to you." The Prophet said, "Who is your guardian?" She replied, "Adi, son of Hatim." The Prophet said, "The one who has run away from God and his Prophet?" Saying these words, the Prophet went away. Next day again she repeated the words, heard the same reply, and so her plea produced no result. The third day, having lost her hopes, she decided to remain silent. But a young man walking behind the Prophet made signs to her to repeat her demand. She repeated the same words. The Prophet said, "Very well, I am waiting for some reliable man from your tribe. As soon as such a man is found, I shall send you with him to your tribe. Inform me if you find such a person who has come to Medina." She asked the people who was the young man walking behind the Prophet who had encouraged her to repeat her demand. They replied that he was Imam Ali. After some time, Safana informed the Prophet that some men of her tribe had come to Medina. The Prophet gave her a new dress, some cash for meeting the expense of the journey, and a camel to ride on. She went along with them to her brother in Syria. When she saw her brother, she reproached him and said, "You brought your wife and your children, but you forgot me, who is the memory of your father." Adi apologized to her. Then, as she was an intelligent woman, Adi consulted her about his plan. He asked, "What do you advise me to do, since you have seen Muhammad from near? Should I join him or keep away from him?" She replied, "I believe you should join him. If he is a prophet of God, it will be a credit to your honor and nobleness. And if he is not a prophet, and only wants to be a worldly ruler, then in a place of Medina, which is not far from Yemen, your place, nobody will dare to dishonor you, because of the honor and respect you have among the people of Yemen. Either way, your honor is guaranteed." The idea appealed to Adi. He decided to go to Medina to observe the Prophet's manners minutely. If he was a prophet, he would follow him like other Muslims, but in case he was only a man with worldly ambitions of power and pelf, then he would cooperate with him to the extent of the common benefits of both. He entered the mosque of Medina and saluted the Prophet. The Prophet accorded him due to respect and took him to his house. On their way, a haggard woman caught hold of the garment of the Prophet and entered into a discussion with him. A long time passed, and the Prophet answered all her questions with kindness and patience. Adi said to himself, "This is one sign from the character of this man that he is a prophet." People having worldly ambitions do not have such a disposition and temperament of replying to a poor old woman with so much patience and kindness. Anyway, when they entered the house, Adi found his life most simple and unpretentious. There was only a quilt which the Prophet used to sit upon, but now he spread it for Adi to sit. Adi insisted that the Prophet should sit upon the quilt, but he flatly refused. Ultimately, Adi sat upon the quilt, and the Prophet sat on the ground. Adi said to himself, "This is the second sign of the character of this man. This is the character of the prophets, not of the kings." The Prophet turned to him and said, "But was not your religion Christianity?" Adi said, "Yes. Why?" The Prophet said, "Then why and on what grounds were you taking 1/4 of the income of your people? Is it not inadmissible in your religion?" Adi, who had kept his religion secret even from his closest relatives, was surprised to hear it from the Prophet. He said to himself, "This is the third sign that this man is a prophet." Then the Prophet said, "You are looking at the present poverty and helplessness of the Muslims. You find that the Muslims today are living in distress. They are surrounded by crowds of enemies and have no security of their lives and properties. They have no power in their hands. By God, the time is not far when such a vast wealth will come to them, and that there will be no poor among them. By God, their enemies will be vanquished, and there will exist such a perfect peace and order that a woman will be able to travel from Iraq to Hijaz alone, and nobody will trouble her. By God, the time is near then when the white palaces of Babylonia will come under the hands of the Muslims." Adi embraced Islam with perfect faith and sincerity and remained faithful to the end of his life. He lived upon the years after the Holy Prophet. He always remembered the talks of the Prophet in his first meeting with him, and the forecasts at that time about the future of Muslims. He used to say, "By God, I saw the Muslims conquering the white palaces of Babylonia in my lifetime, and there is such a peace and order that a woman can travel from Iraq to Hijaz without anybody troubling her. By God, I am sure a day will come when there will be no poor among the Muslims." Story number 7. Ibn Sayyaba. Ibn Sayyaba, who was a resident of Kufa, was a young man whose father had died. The tragedy of the death of his father, coupled with poverty and unemployment, was destroying the soul of this sensitive man. One day, while sitting in his house, he heard a knock at the door. He was a friend of his father. After offering his condolences, this friend said, "Did your father leave anything for you?" He replied, "No." Then the man said, "Take this 1,000 dirham, try to turn it into a capital and meet your expenses from its profit." Saying these words, he went away. Ibn Sayyaba, happy as he was, went to his mother and showing the money, told her the story. The same day he used the money in purchasing some merchandise and opening up a shop, and set his heart to it. He made a rapid progress. Soon after, he realized that not only he had met his household expenses from the Prophet, but even the capital had increased to a great extent. Now he thought of performing pilgrimage, and approached his mother for her advice. She said, "First you should repay the 1,000 dirham, which has brought such prosperity to us, and then you may go to Mecca." He went to see the friend of his father, and placing a purse of 1,000 dirhams before him, said, "Please accept your money back." The man thought that Ibn Sayyaba was returning the same money because it was not sufficient for any trade, so he said, "If the amount is insufficient, I can increase it." Ibn Sayyaba replied, "Good God, it was not insufficient. It has brought great prosperity to us, and since I am now quite well off financially, I have come to repay your money and express my thanks to you, particularly when I have decided to go on pilgrimage." He came to his home and packed his luggage and prepared to go for Mecca. After the performance of the Holy Hajj, he came to Medina and went to see Imam al-Sadiq, peace be with him, along with other pilgrims. There was a huge crowd in the house of the Imam, peace be with him, and being young, he chose to sit at the far end of the gathering, and from there watch the people coming and going, and heard their questions and the answers given by the Imam. When the house became nearly empty, the Imam, peace be with him, pointed to him and said, "What can I do for you?" So Ibn Sayyaba replied, "I am Abdul Rahman, son of Sayyaba of Kufa from the tribe of Bijli." "How is your father?" the Imam said. "He died." "Ah, may God have mercy upon him. Did he leave anything for you?" Ibn Sayyaba said, "No, he didn't." So the Imam asked, "How could you perform pilgrimage?" "After the death of my father, we were in distress," replied Ibn Sayyaba. "On one side, his death, and on the other side, poverty and unemployment were crushing us extremely. Then one day, a friend of my father gave me 1,000 dirhams and advised me to invest the amount in business. I followed his advice, and from its profit, I came to perform pilgrimage." Before he could finish his story, the Imam, peace be with him, said, "Tell me, what did you do about the money of your father's friend?" Ibn Sayyaba replied, "I refunded the amount on the advice of my mother before coming out for Hajj." "Very good," said the Imam. "Do you like me to give you an advice?" "May I be your ransom?" "Of course," replied Ibn Sayyaba. "Be truthful and righteous. A truthful and righteous man is a partner in wealth of others," replied the Imam. Story number 8. Aqil, as a guest of Imam Ali, peace be with him. Aqil arrived as a guest at the government house in the days of the caliphate of his brother, Imam Ali. Imam Ali made a sign to his elder son, Hassan, to offer a garment to his uncle. So Imam Hassan presented to him a robe and a cloak. Nightfall soon came. The weather was warm. They were sitting on the rooftop, having amiable talks. It was time for dinner. Aqil considered himself to be the guest of the absolute ruler of the Muslim world and expected an extraordinarily colorful and rich dinner. But to his surprise, it was the most ordinary and simple one. He said, "Is this all the food?" Imam Ali replied, "Isn't it God's gift? I wholeheartedly thank Almighty God that He has bestowed me with this gift." Aqil said, "Then I should better tell you my needs at once and be on my way soon. I am in debt. Please order to pay off my debt as soon as possible and help your poor brother as much as you can so that I can return to my place relieved of my burdens." The Imam replied, "How much is your debt?" Aqil answered, 100,000 dirhams. "Wow, 100,000 dirhams? That's large. I'm sorry, brother, but I don't have so much money to give you. Wait till the time comes for the disbursement of stipends. I shall withdraw my personal share and give from it to you, thus fulfilling my duty of cooperation and brotherhood towards you. If my family and children were not in need of their own expenses, I would have given you my entire share." "What?" replied Aqil. "Should I wait till the payment of the stipends? You have the state treasury in your hand and still you are asking me to wait till the time of disbursement? And then only you will give me from your personal share? You can withdraw any amount you want from the state treasury, so why are you making me wait till then? Besides, what is your total share from it? Even if you give me your entire share, how far will it relieve me of my trouble?" The Imam replied, "I am surprised to hear your proposal. What concern is it for me or you whether there is money in the treasury or not? We are just like any other Muslims. True, you are my brother and I must help you as much as possible, but from my personal money, not the public treasury." The argument continued and Aqil pleaded with Imam Ali in various ways. He continued to insist that Imam Ali should give him from state treasury. The place where they were sitting overlooked the market of Kufa, and they could see the cash boxes of the shopkeepers. The Imam said, "If you still insist and are not ready to listen to me, then I have another proposal for you. If you follow it, you can not only repay all your loan, but also have plenty of money left over." His brother said, "What is it?" The Imam replied, "Down over there are cash boxes. As soon as the market is closed and nobody is there, go down and break open the boxes and take whatever you want." But Aqil replied, "Whose boxes are they?" The Imam replied, "They belong to the people of this market. They keep their cash in them." Aqil was astonished. "Strange! You're telling me to steal the money of the poor people who have earned it with their hard labor, and then have gone home, leaving their cashes in the trust of God? Then why are you urging me to open the boxes of the state treasury for you? Replied the Imam. Whom does it belong to? This also belongs to the same people who are asleep in their houses, carefree and in comfort. All right, I have another suggestion. Follow it if you like. Aqil said, fine, what is that? The Imam said, if you are ready, then pick up your sword, and so will I. The old city of Hira is not far from here. There are leading merchants and wealthy people there. We make a surprise attack on one of them during the night and bring out enormous wealth with us. Aqil, again astonished, said, brother, I haven't come here for theft and robbery that you're suggesting these things to me. I'm only asking you to instruct the officials of the treasury to give me some money which is in your power so that I can pay my debt. The Imam answered back, suppose that we steal the property of an individual. Do you think it's better than stealing from the property of millions of Muslims? How is it that taking the property of an individual with sword is robbery and usurping the property of the general public is not? You're under the impression that robbery only means attacking some individual and taking his property by force. The reality is that the worst type of robbery is the same thing which you are proposing to me to do now. Story number 9. The first slogan. News leaking now and then from Mecca to the tribe of Bani Ghaffar had attracted the mind of Abi Dharr, a man of an inquisitive nature. He wanted to reach to the depth of those developments in Mecca, but the distorted news occasionally obtained from those individuals were not making any sense to him. The only definite thing known to him was that a new voice was arising in Mecca and the Meccans were striving hard to silence it. But what was that new voice, and why were the Meccans so opposed to it? These were the questions which remained unanswered. His brother was going to Mecca. He told him, people tell me that a man has appeared in Mecca and has brought some new talks and claims that they have been revealed unto him from God. Since you're going to Mecca, please investigate into this same matter and bring me the correct information. Days passed. He eagerly waited for his brother, and when he came back, Abu Dharr asked him, what is the news, and how are the things standing there? His brother said, so far as I could gather, he is a man who invites people towards good morals. And also, he has brought some talk which is not poetry. I had wanted you to make a more thorough investigation, replied Abu Dharr. This much information is not enough for my purpose. I think it's better that I should go there personally to find out the truth. He put up some provision on his back and straightway came to Mecca. He was determined to meet the man who had brought the new talks and to hear the words directly from his mouth. But he neither knew him nor thought it prudent to inquire about him from someone else. The atmosphere in Mecca was very tense with oppression and intimidation. Without really making his intentions known to anyone, he was looking in all directions, listening to the gossip of the people around him and hoping that it might provide him some clue. Masjidul Haram, or the place where the Kaaba was located, was the center of news and events. Hence, he came there with his baggage on the back. The day turned into night, but he could still find no clue. Night passed a little, and he stretched himself there. Soon after, a young man passed nearby. He looked at Abu Dharr with searching eyes and went away. His glance seemed to him very meaningful. It occurred to him that perhaps that young man was the right person to divulge his secret to. So he followed him, but came back not daring to speak to him. Next day, also, he sat the whole day in Masjidul Haram. He was alert and looking for every possible clue, but it ended in vain and failure. The night befell, and he again stretched on the same spot. The same youth appeared again and respectfully said, "Has the time not come for you to come to your house and spend the night there?" Saying this, he took him to his house. Abu Dharr did not divulge his secret that night, nor did the youth ask him. Early morning, Abu Dhar said goodbye to him and came to the mosque after his pursuit. That day also turned into night, and he could not make out anything from the talks of the people. The young man again appeared and took him to the house, but this time he broke the silence. "Can you tell me why you have come to this city?" Abu Dhar replied, "I shall tell you if you promise to help me." "I promise I shall do my best to help you." So Abu Dhar said, "The fact is that we have been hearing among our tribes that a man has appeared in Mecca and has brought some talks claiming the same to be revealed unto him from God. I have come so that I may see him and investigate about him. Firstly, tell me what do you believe about him, and secondly, can you guide me to him?" The youth responded, "Rest assured he is on the right path, and what he says is truly from God. I shall take you to him in the morning. But as you are aware, if these people came to know about it, your life as well as mine will be in danger. Tomorrow morning I shall walk ahead of you, and you follow me at a distance. If I see any danger, I shall stand and bow towards the earth like a man emptying a pot. Then you must escape. If there is no danger, you will follow me wherever I go." The next morning, the youth, who was none else than Imam Ali, appeared from his house, and Abu Dhar followed him. Fortunately, the way was clear, and they reached the house of the Prophet safely. He made a thorough study of the manners of the Prophet and also listened to the verses of the Quran. Not much time really passed when he finally embraced Islam very enthusiastically. He made a covenant with the Prophet that he would not listen to any reproach in the way of God during his whole life, and that he would speak the truth, even though it might be a little bitter for some tastes. The Prophet said, "Now go back to your tribes and invite them towards Islam till you receive my next order." He said, "Very well, but before leaving this city, I shall go before these people and will announce before them the slogan of Islam, and whatever may happen can happen." He went straight to the heart of the city, to the mosque, and cried before the congregation of the Quraysh that he testified that there is no God but God, and that Muhammad was his servant and messenger. Hearing this slogan from the stranger, the Meccans rushed at him immediately, and had Abbas son of Abdul Muttalib not come to his rescue, so that they could have torn him into pieces. But Abbas said, "This man is from the tribe of Ghaffar, and the trade caravan of Quraysh, plying between Mecca and Syria, passes through their lands. Don't you know that if you kill one of their men, you will never again be allowed to pass through their land safely?" Henceforth, Abu Dhar was rescued from their hands thanks to Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. However, he was not satisfied. He said, "Once again, I shall repeat this slogan. Let these people hear what they don't like to hear at all. If they hear it again, so be it. They'll become used to it." So the next day he repeated the same slogan, and again the same people attacked him, and Abbas, who was present there, saved him from their atrocities. After that, according to the order of the Prophet, he returned home and started preaching Islam to his tribe. When the Prophet had migrated to Medina, Abu Dhar went to him and remained in Medina almost to the end of his life. He was extremely frank, and owing to this virtuous attributes, he was exiled during the Caliphate of Uthman, first to Syria, and later to a place named Rabza, which was near Medina. And over there he died a lonely death. The Prophet had said about him, "May God bless Abu Dhar. He will live alone, he will die alone, and he shall be brought up alone in the day of resurrection." Story number 10. The Prohibition of Water. Muawiyah was ruling over Syria as its governor for nearly 16 years, and was secretly planning to grab the caliphate, taking advantage of every possible opportunity. The best excuse for him to revolt against the central authority and declare his own caliphate was the murder of Uthman. Interestingly enough, he had not done anything concerning the appeals of Uthman for help during his lifetime. In fact, he was waiting for him to be murdered, so that he could make it an excuse for his scheme. Uthman finally got murdered, and Muawiyah immediately sought to exploit the situation for his own purpose and desire for power. On the other hand, the people who were after the murder of Uthman rallied behind Imam Ali, who because of various reasons was reluctant to take the responsibility of caliphate, and declared their allegiance to him. Observing that the responsibility was now formally turned to him, he accepted it, and his caliphate was proclaimed in Medina, which was the capital and center of Muslim world in those days. All provinces of Islamic government submitted to his obedience, with the exception of Syria, which was still under the rule of Muawiyah. He refused allegiance to Imam Ali, accusing him of sheltering the murderers of Uthman. He thus recruited a large number of Syrian soldiers and made preparation for the declaration of independence of his provinces. After settling the issue of the Battle of Camel, or Jamal, Imam Ali turned his attention to Muawiyah. He wrote several letters to him, but they were all in vain. Both sides moved their armies towards each other. Abdul Awar Salami was leading Muawiyah's advanced battalion, and Malik al-Ashtar was in command of the advanced battalion of Ali. They met at the bank of the Euphrates. Imam Ali's directive to Malik was not to be the first to attack, but Abdul Awar made a severe attack to intimidate the soldiers of Imam Ali. Malik then pushed the Syrians far behind, and then Salami now thought of another tactic. He finally reached the slope on the bank of the Euphrates, which was the only spot convenient to get water. He deployed his spearmen and archers to guard the spot and prevent Malik and his company from coming near it. Soon after, Muawiyah himself arrived with a large army. Happy at the strategy of his commander, he further increased the number of the soldiers guarding the approach to the river. The soldiers of Imam Ali were put in distress owing to the shortage of water, and Muawiyah with pleasure said, "This is our first victory." Only one man by the name of Amr ibn al-As, the shrewd minister of Muawiyah, did not think it of a good policy. On the other side, Imam Ali himself had arrived and was informed of the situation, so he sent a letter to Muawiyah notifying, "We have come here, but as far as possible we do not like to wage a war of killings between the Muslims. We earnestly hope to settle our differences through negotiations and discussions, but we observe that you and your followers have started using weapons of destruction before trying anything else. Besides, you have denied water on my companions. Instruct them to desist from this act so that we can start negotiations. Of course, if you do not like anything but war, we are not afraid to take that decision and go to war." Muawiyah consulted his advisor. The general opinion was to take advantage of the golden opportunity and ignore the letter. Only Amr ibn al-As was against this view, so he said, "You're mistaken. The fact is that Imam Ali and his men do not want to start the war themselves, and it is because of this that they are silent at present and have tried to dissuade you from your scheme through this letter. Do not think that they will retreat if you ignore this letter and continue denying them water, because then they will take out arms and will not stop until they have driven you away from the Euphrates into disgrace." But the majority of advisors was of the opinion that the denial of water would weaken the enemy, compelling them to retreat. Muawiyah personally was in the favor of this idea. Discussion came to the end, and the person whom the letter was given to take to Muawiyah, by the name of Sa'sa'a, asked for the reply. Muawiyah, using the delaying tactics, said that he would send the reply afterwards. Meanwhile, he ordered his soldiers guarding water to be extra alert and to prevent coming and going of the soldiers of Ali. The Imam was distressed at this development because it brought to an end every hope of any amicable settlement through talks and negotiations, and it really showed that the opposite side was devoid of every goodwill. Now, the only way out was to use force. He stood before his soldiers and delivered a short but powerful and forceful address, the contents of which were as follows. "These people have started oppression and opened the door of conflict and welcomed you with hostility. They are hungry for war and are demanding war and bloodshed from you. They have denied you water. Now you have to choose between the two paths, as there is no third course. Either accept the humiliation and oppression and remain thirsty as you are, or satisfy your thirsty swords with their dirty bloods, so that you may quench your thirst with the sweet water. Death is to live a defeated and disgraceful life, and life is to be victorious even at the cost of death. Verily, Muawiyah has gathered around him some ignorant and misguided mob, and is taking advantage of their ignorance, so that they are making their necks targets of the arrows of death. This address moved the soldiers of Imam Ali and stirred their blood. They made a severe attack and pushed the enemy far back and retook the possession of that water bank. Amr ibn al-As, whose forecast was now a fact, said to Muawiyah, "Now, if Ali and his army pay you with your own coin, what will you do? Can you take possession of that water bank again for the second time?" Muawiyah said, "In your opinion, how will Ali deal with us now?" So the response came from Amr ibn al-As that he said, "I believe Imam Ali will not behave as you had done. He will not deny us water. He has not come here for such deeds." The soldiers of Ali, after removing the soldiers of Muawiyah from that water bank, asked his permission to prevent the enemy from taking water. Imam Ali said, "Don't deny them water. These are the methods of the ignorant. I do not set my hands to such acts. I am going to start negotiation with them on the basis of the Holy Book of God. If they accept my proposals, well and good, but if they refuse, I shall fight with them. But simultaneously, I will not deny them water. I will never do such a thing and will not oppress them by shortage of water." Not long afterwards, the soldiers of Muawiyah used to come to that bank side by side with the soldiers of Ali to drink water, and nobody prevented them. Story number 11. The Silly Shopkeeper. A heavy-built, tall man was passing through the market of Kufa. His step was firm and assured. He had a fine figure and a sunburnt face. Encounters of the battlefield had left their marks on him, and the corner of one of his eyes was slit. A shopkeeper, to amuse his friends, threw a handful of sweepings onto the man, but the man continued his walk in the same assured and firm manner, without raising any eyebrow or looking towards the shopkeeper with an antagonistic look. When he went away, a friend of the shopkeeper said, "Do you know who that man is whom you have insulted just now?" "No, I don't recognize him. He was a passerby like thousands of people passing this way every day. But tell me, who was this man?" "Strange," replied his friend. "Didn't you recognize him? He was Malik Ashtar, the renowned commander-in-chief of Imam Ali." "What? Really? He was Malik Ashtar? The same Malik whose bravery turns the heart of lion into water, and mention of whose name makes his enemies tremble with fear?" "Yes, that was Malik himself." "Oh man, woe to me! What did I do? Now he will surely, no doubtedly, order to punish me severely. I need to run to him immediately to apologize and pray to him to forgive my misbehavior." He ran after Malik. He saw him turning towards a mosque. He followed him to the mosque and saw that he had started praying. So he waited till he finished the prayer, and humbly introducing himself, he told him, "I am that same man who had committed the silly prank and behaved disrespectfully to you." Malik said, "But by God, I did not come in the mosque but for your sake, because I knew that you were a very ignorant and misguided man, that you give trouble to the people without any cause. I felt pity on you, so I came here to pray for you and ask God to lead you onto the right path. No, I did not have such any intentions as you were afraid of." Story number 12. What happened to your sons? After the martyrdom of Imam Ali and absolute domination of Muawiyah over the caliphate, there were some contact exchanges that were taking place between him and the sincere followers of Imam Ali. Muawiyah tried hard to make them confess that they did not really gain anything by their friendship with Ali. Obviously, they had lost everything on the altar of that friendship. He longed to hear from their mouth at least some expression of regret and remorse, but this wish never materialized. The followers of Ali after his martyrdom had become more and more aware of his virtues and greatness. Whatever their sacrifices during his lifetime, now they were doing more for his love, for his principles and for keeping his mission alive. They were having all sorts of problems and hardships, but very courageously faced them. And as a result, the endeavors of Muawiyah sometimes produced the opposite results, that is, failure. Adi, son of Hatim, the paramount chief of the Tai tribe, was one of the devoted, sincere, and knowledgeable followers of Ali. He had many sons. He, his sons, and his tribe were always ready to sacrifice all of themselves for Ali. His 3 sons named Tarfa, Turayf, and Tarif were martyred in the war of Siffin under the banner of Imam Ali. The time went on, and Imam Ali himself was martyred. Muawiyah then usurped the caliphate, and then Adi came face to face with Muawiyah. To revive his sad memories and to make him confess how much harm had come to him in the friendship of Ali, Muawiyah said, "What happened to your 3 sons, Tarfa, Turayf, and Tarif?" Adi replied, "They were martyred in the battle of Siffin under the banner of Ali." "Ali did not do justice to you then," said Muawiyah. "Why?" replied Adi. "Because he threw your sons in the mouth of death and preserved his own sons in safety." "But I did not do justice to Ali," replied Adi. "Why?" said Muawiyah. "Because he was killed and I'm still alive. I ought to have sacrificed myself for him in his lifetime." Muawiyah saw that he was not getting what he had aimed for. And on the other side, he also wanted to hear about the character and life of Ali from those who had been near to Ali and had lived with him day in and day out. Therefore, he asked Adi to narrate to him the character of Ali as he had seen it. But Adi asked to be excused. However, Muawiyah insisted, and finally Adi said, "By God, Ali was the most far-sighted and strong man. He talked with righteousness and decided the cases with clarity. He was an ocean of knowledge and wisdom. He hated the worldly pomp and show, and liked the solitude of night. He wept more in love of God and thought more about God. In solitude, he scrutinized his own self and pitied about the past. He preferred short clothes and a simple, poor life. Amongst us, he was like one of us. If we requested from him anything, he granted our request. When we visited him, he made us sit near him without keeping any distance. In spite of all this humbleness, his presence was so awe-inspiring that we did not dare utter any words before him. He was so majestic that we could not look at him. When he smiled, his teeth appeared like a string of pearls. He respected honest and pious people and was kind to indigent ones. Neither a strong man had any fear of injustice from him, nor a weak person ever lost hope of his justice. By God, one night I saw him standing in his place of worship when the dark night had engulfed everything, and tears were rolling down on his face and beard. He was restless, like a snake-bitten person, and was weeping like a bereaved man. It seems as if even now I am hearing his voice as he was addressing the world. "O world, you are coming towards me and want to lure me? Go deceive someone else. Your time is not come. I have divorced you 3 times, after when there is no return. Your pleasure is valueless and your importance is insignificant. Alas, the provision is too little, the journey is too long, and there is no companion." Hearing these words of Adi, Muawiyah started crying. Then wiping off the tears, he said, "May God bless Abul Hasan, Imam Ali. He was as you have said. Now tell me, how do you feel without him?" So Adi replied, "I feel like a mother whose dear one is beheaded in her lap." "Wouldn't you ever forget him?" replied Muawiyah. "Would the world allow me to forget him?" responded Adi. Story number 13. The Retirement. The old man, a Christian by religion, had worked all his life, but had not been able to save anything for his old age. Lately, he had become also blind. Old age, poverty, and blindness had joined hands, and he had no other way except begging. He used to stand at a corner of a lane for begging. People had compassion for him, so they gave him some alms, from which he ate every day, and continued his sad life. One day, Ali, the leader of the faithful, passed through the lane and saw the beggar in that condition. Imam, out of his concern for others, inquired about the old man. He wanted to know the factors which led him to that condition. Had he no son to support him? Or is there no other way for him to live a respectable life in his old age? The Imam asked. The people who knew the old man came forward and informed Ali that he was a Christian and had worked hard so long as he had eyes and was so young and strong. Now that he had lost his youth as well as his eyes, he was unable to do any work. Also, he had no savings, so it was natural that he was begging. The Imam replied, "Strange. Till he had strength, you extracted work from him, and now you have left him on his own?" His story shows that he had worked when he had the strength. Therefore, it is the duty of the government and the society to support him till he is alive. Now go and give him a life pension from the state treasury. Story number 14. In the land of Mina. The pilgrims had assembled in Mina. Imam as-Sadiq, peace be with him, and his companions were sitting in a place and were eating some grapes. A beggar appeared and asked for alms. The Imam took some grapes to give him, but he refused to accept it and asked for money. The Imam told him to excuse him as he did not have any money. The beggar went away disappointed. After going a few steps, he had second thoughts and came back and asked for the same grapes. The Imam now refused to give him those grapes. Soon after, another beggar appeared. The Imam again took some grapes and gave it to him. He accepted it and said, "Thanks be to the Lord of the universe, who gave me my sustenance." On hearing these words, the Imam told him to wait and gave him 2 handfuls of grapes. The beggar thanked God for the second time. The Imam again told him to wait, and then turning to one of his friends asked, "How much money is with you?" The man searched his pockets and produced nearly 20 dirhams, which he gave to the beggar at the order of the Imam. The beggar, thanking God for the 3rd time, said, "Thanks are exclusively to God. O God, you are the bestower of the good, and you have no companion or partner." On hearing these words, the Imam took off his garment and gave it to the beggar. Now the beggar changed his tone and spoke a few words of thanks to the Imam himself. Then the Imam did not give him anything, and he went away. His friends and companions who were present there said, "We thought that, if the beggar continued thanking God in the same manner as before, the Imam would have continued giving him more and more. But when he changed his talk and praised and thanked the Imam himself, the Imam did not continue his help." Story number 15. The protection that was revoked. Muslims had migrated to Abyssinia, or modern-day Ethiopia, because of the torture and persecution of the Quraysh, but always anxiously waited for some news from their homeland nonetheless. Those who were the standard bearers of unity and justice of God, even though they were an insignificant minority in comparison to the swarms of idolaters, but were bent upon maintaining the firmness in religion and social system, were confident that every day their supporters were increasing and the rank of their adversaries was decreasing. They even hoped that soon the curtain of ignorance would be removed from the eyes of the non-believers, and the whole tribe of Quraysh would embrace Islam, casting away their idols. By chance, a rumor took wings in their locality in Abyssinia that the whole Quraysh had been converted to Islam. Though the news was not confirmed, the refugees, who were deep in their faith and religion, and their strong expectation and hope in the ultimate victory of Islam, led a group of them to return to Mecca without waiting for the confirmation of the news from unreliable sources. One of them was Uthman bin Ma'dhun, the well-known companion of the Prophet, who was extraordinarily attached to the Prophet and was greatly respected by all Muslims. When he reached near Mecca, he realized that the news was not correct. On the contrary, Quraysh had intensified the torture and oppression of the Muslims. He was in a bad fix. He could not return to Abyssinia as it was far off. and even if he entered Mecca, he would immediately become a target of the Quraysh's torture. So at last, an idea came into his mind. He thought of taking advantage of an Arabian custom by placing himself under the protection of one of the influential men of Quraysh. According to the Arab custom, if a person would request an Arab for protection, he usually would grant his request and would even protect him at the cost of his own life. For an Arab, it was a shame if someone asked him for protection and he did not grant that request, even though he might be his enemy. So Uthman entered Mecca at midnight and went straight to the house of Walid, son of Mughira Makhzumi, a distinguished, wealthy, and influential Qurayshi. He asked for his protection, which was readily granted. The next day, Walid brought him to the mosque and made a formal announcement before the elders of the tribe that from that moment on, Uthman was under his protection. Anyone doing anything against him would be considered going against Walid personally. As Walid was a very highly respected Quraysh, nobody dared to trouble Uthman anymore. He was now a protected person. He moved freely as one of the Quraysh attending their sittings. But at the same time, the persecution of other Muslims continued unabated. It was hard on Uthman, who was not happy at being safe while his fellow Muslims continued to suffer. One day he thought to himself that it was not just on his part to be safe under the protection of a pagan, whereas his brethren were being persecuted. He came to Walid and said, "I am sincerely thankful to you. You gave me protection and saved me. But from today I want to go out from your protection and join my friends. Let whatever happens to them happen to me." "Nephew, perhaps you are not happy with me, or perhaps my protection could not keep you safe," replied Walid. "Why? I am not unhappy at all, but I don't want to live any longer under protection of anyone except God." Walid replied, "Since you have decided, I would like you to come to the mosque and announce your going out from my protection, as I took you the first day there and announced your protection." "Very well, no objection to it." So they came to the mosque. When the elders had gathered, Walid said, "Everybody should know that Uthman has come here to announce his exit from my protection." Uthman said, "He is right. I have come here with that very intention, and also to inform you that so long as I was under his protection, he protected me very well and I had no reason to complain. The reason for me going out from his protection is only that I don't like to live under the protection of anyone except God." This is how the protective period came to end, and he lost his immunity from persecution. But he was still moving freely among Quraysh as before. One day, Labid bin Rabi'a, the well-known poet of Arabia, came to Mecca to recite his poem, which he had recently composed, and which is now considered as a masterpiece in classics of the pre-Islamic period of Arabic literature. The poem begins with the following line: "Know that everything is null and void except God. Nothing except God is the truth." The Prophet had said about this line, "It is the truest poem that has ever been composed." Anyhow, Labid came. Quraysh gathered to hear such a great poet, and there was pin-drop silence to hear a reputedly best work of Labid. So he started the recitation with manifest pride, "Know that everything is null and void except God." Before he could recite the second line, Uthman, sitting in a corner, said loudly, "Excellent, you have spoken the truth. It is the fact. Everything except God is false." Labid recited the second line, "And without doubt, all riches come to an end." Uthman cried, "But this is wrong. Not all riches come to an end. This is true only for the material riches of this world. The riches of the life hereafter are immortal and eternal." The people were surprised. Nobody had expected that a man who only short a while ago was under the protection of another person, and who now had neither security of his life nor power of any wealth, would dare criticizing a poet of Labid's stature in the gathering of chiefs and elders of the Quraysh. They requested Labid to repeat the lines. So the poet repeated the first line, and again Uthman said, "It is true and correct." But when Labid repeated the second line, Uthman said, "Wrong, it is not true. The riches of that world are not perishable." This time, Labid himself felt most annoyed. He cried, "O people of Quraysh, by God, your gatherings were not like this before. There were no such rude and discourteous people among you before. How is it that now among you I find such persons?" A man from the audience, with the intention of pacifying Hayr and making him continue his recitation, said affably and nicely, "Please don't be angry to the talk of this man. He's crazy, and he is not alone. There is a group of some other more crazy persons in this city, and they have the same belief as this fool. They have gone out from our religion and have chosen a new religion of their own." Uthman replied to that man forcefully. The man lost his temper, moved from his seat, and slapped at the face of Uthman. Pulling his full strength behind that slap, Uthman, as a result, got a black eye. Someone said to Uthman, "Uthman, you did not appreciate the value of the protection of Walid. Had you still been under his protection, your eye would not have been black." Uthman replied, "The protection of God is safer and more dignified than the protection of any other person. So far as my eye is concerned, the other eye also longs to attain the same honor in the way of God." Walid came forward and said, "Uthman, I am ready to take you again under my protection, but I have decided not to accept anyone's protection except that of God," replied Walid. Story number 16. The Prayer That Was Granted. "O God, do not let me return to my family." These were the words that Hind, the wife of Amr bin Jamu, heard from her husband when he left the house fully armed for participating in the Battle of Uhud. It was his first time to fight alongside with Muslims. He had not fought before as he was very lame, and according to the clear rule of the Quran, the holy war against the invaders is not incumbent upon those who are blind, lame, or sick. Though he himself had not participated in this jihad, his 4 lion-hearted sons were always with the Holy Prophet. Nobody had ever thought that Amr, in spite of his genuine excuse, and even after sending his 4 sons to battle, would want himself to be included among the soldiers. When his relatives heard of his decision, they came to persuade him to change his mind. They said, "First of all, you are exempted from battlefield by rule of the divine law. Secondly, you have 4 brave sons who are going with the Prophet, so there is no need for you to go yourself." He replied, "As my sons want to get eternal bliss in paradise, I too have the same desire. Will it not be strange if they go and achieve martyrdom while I sit in the house with you? No, it is not possible." His relatives did not accept his views, and one after another came to him to persuade him. At last he appealed to the Prophet. "O Prophet of God, my relatives want to confine me in the house. They are not allowing me to participate in battle. By God, it is my wish to go to paradise with this lame leg." The Prophet responded, "O Amir, after all, you have a genuine excuse. God has exempted you, and battling is not incumbent upon you." "But O Prophet of God, I am aware of that. I know it is not incumbent upon me." Even then, the Prophet said, "Do not forbid him from battle. Let him go. Since he has a desire for attaining martyrdom, God may bless him with that." One of the most spectacular scenes of the battlefield of Uhud was the fighting of Amr ibn Jamu, who was with his limping leg and attacking the center of the enemy's army and shouting, "I have the desire of paradise." One of his sons was moving behind him. They fought gallantly till both were killed. After the war ended, many Muslim women came out of Medina for getting correct news of the whole affair. They were anxious, especially in view of the frightening news which had reached the city. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, was one of them. When she came out of the city, she saw Hind pulling the rein of a camel with 3 dead bodies on its back. Aisha asked, "What is the news?" Hind replied, "Thank God, the Prophet is safe. As he is safe, I have no worries. The other news is that God has made the non-believers, the enemy fields, suffer a reverse with sorrow." "Whose corpse are these?" Aisha asked. They are my brother, my son, and my husband." "Where are you taking them?" asked Aisha. "I am taking them to Medina for burial." Saying this, Hind pulled the rein of the camel towards Medina, but the animal seemed unwilling to proceed and finally sat down. Aisha said, "The load seems heavy. He can't carry it." "No, this camel of ours is very strong and usually carries the load of 2 camels. There must be other reason," replied Hind. Saying this, she pulled the rein towards Medina, but again the camel sat down. When she turned the camel towards Uhud, to her surprise, the animal started walking quickly. The situation was strange. She thought, perhaps there is some mystery in it. She then turned the animal towards Uhud, and it went straight to the Prophet. "O Prophet of God, there is a strange story here. I placed these corpses to take them to Medina to bury them. When I pull the rein towards Medina, the animal refuses to obey me. But when I direct him to Uhud, he walks quickly," said Hind. "Did your husband say anything while coming to Uhud?" replied the Prophet. "O Prophet of God, when he left the house, I heard him saying, 'O God, do not let me return to my family.'" The Prophet said, "Then this is the reason. The sincere prayer of this martyr has been granted. God does not want this corpse to return. There are men among you, helpers of the Prophet, who if they ask anything from God, the Almighty God grants their wishes. Your husband was one of them." On the advice of the Prophet, these men were buried in Uhud. Then the Prophet turned to Hind and said, "These men shall be together in that world. O Prophet of God, pray to the Almighty to keep me also with them." Story number 17. The Right of Companionship. In those days, Kufa was the capital and center of the Islamic government. All eyes of the vast and wide Muslim nation, with the exception of Syria, was fixed at this city, waiting as to what orders were being issued and what decisions were being taken. Outside the city, 2 gentlemen, one a Muslim and the other from the people of the book, met on the road one day. The Muslim was going to Kufa, and the other gentleman to another place nearby. Since a part of their journey was common, they decided to travel together. On the way, they talked and talked on various topics of mutual interest, and ultimately arrived at the point where their paths separated. The non-Muslim was surprised to see that his Muslim companion did not take the path leading to Kufa, but accompanied him on the other path, where he was going. And he asked, "Well, didn't you say you were going to Kufa?" "Yes," replied the Muslim man. "Then why are you coming this way?" "It is the other path. That is the path to Kufa." "I know," said the Muslim. "I just want to take a few steps with you to see you off. Our Prophet has said whenever 2 persons travel together on the same path, they establish reciprocal rights upon each other. Now you have got a right upon me, and for the sake of that right of yours, I wish to walk a few steps with you, and then of course I shall return to my own path." Wow, such an authority and power which is wielded among people in such a perfect way by your Prophet, and the amazing speed with which his religion has spread in the world, must be, I am sure, because of his noble character. The surprise and admiration of this gentleman reached its peak when he learned afterwards that his Muslim friend was none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib, the caliph of that time. Soon after, he embraced Islam and was counted amongst the most devout and self-sacrificing companions of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Story number 18. The Black Market. The dependents of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, peace be with him, had increased in number, and so had his expenses. The Imam decided to invest some money in trade to meet the increased expenses of the house. He arranged an amount of 1,000 dinars, which he gave to his servant named Musadif, directing him to proceed to Egypt and to invest the amount in the business on behalf of the Imam. Musadif purchased some goods usually exported to Egypt and joined a caravan of traders who were taking the same type of merchandise to Egypt. When they reached near Egypt, they met another caravan coming out of the city. They inquired about each other's affairs. During the course of conversation, they learnt that the goods which Musadif and his friends were carrying were not available in Egypt and were in great demand there. They became very happy at their good fortune. Indeed, that was an article of common use, and people had to buy it at all costs. The traders, on hearing the good news, decided to exploit the situation. They agreed together not to sell the goods at less than 100% profit. They entered the city, and the situation was same as they had been told. As previously agreed, they created a black market and did not sell the goods at less than double the cost. Musadif returned to Medina with a net profit of 1,000 dinars. Happy as he was, he went to the Imam and placed before him 2 bags, each containing 1,000 dinars. The Imam asked, "What is this?" "One of the 2 bags represents the capital you gave me, and the other, which is equal to the capital, is the profit I have made," replied the servant. "Certainly the profit is unexpectedly high," replied the Imam. "Tell me, how could you make so much profit?" "Well," replied Musadif, "the fact is, when we learned that near Egypt the merchandise we were carrying had become scarce there, we agreed not to sell the goods at less than double the cost, and we did accordingly." "Glory be to God! You did such a work! You took an oath to create a black market among the Muslims. You swore not to sell the goods at less than double the actual cost?" "No, I don't want such business and such a profit." Then picking up one of the bags, he said, "This is my capital." He did not even touch the other one, and said that he did not want to have any connection with that. Then he said, "O Musadif, it is easier to fight with a sword than to earn the livelihood lawfully." This concludes the end of the book, Anecdotes of Pious Men by Ayatollah Murtudha Mutahhari.